Welcome to Contagious Podcast, Contagious Conversations for Automotive Innovation. I'm so excited to share with you the conversation that we had over on Clubhouse today. This is part of a 6-part series focused on NADA 2021 and the inability for us to gather personally. So what we wanted to do is create a platform and a space for us to connect as personally as possible. Some incredible panelists, people in our industry that are pushing forward with innovation. Hope that you're encouraged by the conversation today. Just as a note, if you're not familiar with Clubhouse, it's an open forum platform where panelists, speakers, and audience members are all involved in the conversation. So you'll hear potential of some people talking through each other or questions being asked by those audience members, and hope that you are encouraged by the messages and the innovation and the thoughts that are shared today. So without further ado, let's head over to the broadcast. All right, so this is NADA plus Clubhouse 2021. Glad that you're here. If you are here, bring people into the room, get all of automotive in here. This is We Made It, the NADA version. It's that time when you get to the end of the conference, you can't barely stand up because you walked around the floor too much, you stayed out too late, and you're just happy to get on a plane and go home and sit down for a hot minute because NADA was exhausting. Now, this NADA wasn't quite as exhausting because we all got to sit on our couches and in our wonderful seats at our offices and experience it virtually, and more importantly, experience it right here on Clubhouse. My name is Kyle Mountsier. I'm the host of Contagious Podcast, Contagious Conversations for Automotive Innovation, and the Marketing and Development and Business Development Director for Nelson Auto Group. And I've had the extreme pleasure of hosting all 6 of these NADA launch-off events. If you want to go back and look at any of the panelists or listen to the prior events, you can go to nada2021.club. That's the link is in my bio, and go find those, or find Contagious Podcasts anywhere where you get your podcasts. We will be recording today. You can see that little red dot up in the top. So if you do come up to speak, just know that we will be recording. We will shut down the recording at some point into this room. And just let it open wide up, and we'll bring everyone to the stage, and we'll just have a big old fun Clubhouse automotive room, and I'm excited for that part. But first, we've got some moderators up here on stage that I've had the pleasure of getting to know either prior to Clubhouse and then also just since Clubhouse, that have added massive value to my automotive experience and given me the ability to adjust and change. 2 of these guys, as I introduce them, have been probably the impetus that started and gave me even the capacity and the understanding that I could start these rooms this week and be alongside of people like Chip Perry and David Long, who I see is down in the audience, and just incredible people pushing our industry forward. My idea is that if we can have more of these conversations, lead out more individually in the groups that we have, that we can push forward in our industry toward innovation so that more people want to be a part of it and more people want to do business with us. We need more people talking and not less, and more people listening and not less. So without further ado, let's launch in, and I'll introduce our speakers in the order they came into the room. And I'm going to ask you 2 questions as I always have. And the first question, because I'm like a foodie and a coffee guy, is going to be centered around that. And then the other question will be centered around what we're talking about in the room today. So the first question is going to be this: Pad Thai or Indian food? Pad Thai or Indian food, which do you go to? And if you've got a favorite, let us know where it is so that when we fly to your city, we can go eat there. And then second, and the bigger question, the one that the one that this room will be about, is the handcuffs are off, the budget's wide open, you just left NADA, your mind was blown, you're headed back to the store or the software company or wherever you're at, and maybe stay. We've got vendors up here. I'm excited to bring some more dealer people up into the room because I think y'all are going to be the people that really get me excited. But the handcuffs off. You come back from NADA, you got all these ideas, you saw a bunch of vendors, you heard some incredible speakers. The handcuffs are off, the budget's wide open. What do you do first? What do you launch in? Who do you talk to first? What do you encourage? What do you start the change management process on first? So I am going to introduce Logan to the stage. Logan, just so everybody knows, you need to go back and listen to the podcast that goes through the second half of yesterday afternoon's meeting, because she asked a question that literally like had everybody silent for 30 seconds. Nobody could even respond. It was so incredible. She's one of Auto Remarketing's in Canada 40 under 40. She is part of AccuTrade. She's the director of sales and helps out with the Vindo podcast weekly, and is just an all-around really cool person that I've gotten to know through Clubhouse. So Logan, take it away.
Thank you, Kyle. I would be remiss if I don't thank you for organizing all of this. I think it's been a wonderful experience, and it's certainly added to my week at NADA. Pad Thai or Indian food? I'm going to go with Indian food, and only because we have better Indian where I live than we have Pad Thai. So that's what I would suggest. And then if the budget's wide open, what am I doing when I get back from NADA? Well, I am a vendor. So the first thing that I would do is I would talk to my CTO about all this omni-channel discussion. So customers today coming into dealerships are looking for this omni-channel approach where whether you're online or in the dealership, they would like you to pick up where they've left off in their process. And I think that as a vendor, it would be really exciting to bring that back to my CEO and CTO and CEO and see how we can be more integrated and facilitate better communication between consumers and the people within the dealership trying to, sell more cars.
Awesome. Thanks, Logan. This next guy is Micah Birkholz. He's a fellow runner, a fellow bearded man, and a fellow yoga lover. And Mike and I met a little over a year and a half ago via Vista Dash, and he was after me for a long time. But I said, hey, before we do Vista Dash, we got to become really good friends. And then I said to him one day, hey, I'm thinking about starting this podcast. And he said, you have to do it. And so that's why the podcast, that's why we're doing this today. Is because we'll give it 33% to Micah. My wife is 30%. The old phone call came in, and the other 33% is going to go to someone else in the room.
Taking 34%.
Oh my goodness, Micah.
All right, hey, thank you so much, man. This is it's been an absolute blast being a part of this. So when it comes to food. All right, I'm going to go with Thai. And if you are in Minneapolis area where I live, Minneapolis, Minnesota, you have to go to Walk in the Park. They have this red cherry curry that is amazing. It's hot, it's sweet, and the owners, part owners of it come from the car business. So, I mean, you've got to love a place where the owner's husband works in the car business. So, I mean, you've got to support that. So that's my choice, hands down. Now my mouth is watering just thinking about this food. So, give me a second. Oh, good. All right, we're good. All right. And then the other question that you asked is, what do I do? So, like Logan, I'm also a vendor, but the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go talk to my people. And by my people, I'm talking about my salespeople, my sales managers. I'm talking to my people. I'm going to first identify who they are. I don't think I've spent, and even within my organization, I can get better at knowing who my people are, and then identify who my people are by finding their strengths, their weaknesses, and what their motivations are. Breaking that down, it's going to help me to identify better internally what my brand is. And then, does my customer experience for my customers, does it relate well to my people, my brand? So I know you said, hey, the money is wide open, the budgets are off. I need to better understand who my people are so that I can then direct the ship. Now, I can then identify, do I need to shift my pricing model? Do I need to shift from a negotiation store to a single point of contact store? Is there a need in my marketplace based upon the people that I currently employ to make some shifts? And if the answer is yes, I'll probably talk to like an A2 Sync I'll probably talk to other businesses, other dealerships that have switched to single price modeling, and then also have the correlating tech stack to fit with that, whether it be a fuse tech, if it's going to be another provider out there that can help to fulfill the technology piece of the human process. That's what my steps 1, 2, 3, 4 would be.
Awesome. Thanks, Micah. And Chris, who got in by default, but I'm so excited to have him because he has had so much input over the past few days and to the automotive industry, the managing director at Dealer Medics. I don't have a ton much to say about him except for he's encouraged me in 2 rooms yesterday like crazy, and I actually changed one thing in our store because of something he said. So he's got an impact on me, and we all have an opportunity to have an impact on different people. So, Chris.
Wow. Thanks, Kyle. I'd love to learn what that was, and so maybe we can offline on that. And this is kind of that moment where you realize you really don't belong up on the stage with the people that are around me. Getting to meet all these people this last week has been amazing, and Clubhouse has been an absolute a gold mine for stuff. I've enhanced so much of what we do at Dealer Medics to some of these best practices. So I love having these discussions. But to get to Kyle, your questions, hands down, pad thai. And if you're in Southern California, hit me up. We're going down to Irvine, and we're going into the grungiest little Thai joint that you'll ever find off of Lake Forest called Diho. And there's an ornery little Thai lady that will greet you at the door and sit you down, and it's the best pad Thai I've had anywhere. So Diho, you got to check it out. I hope they're still there. It's been a minute since I've been in there. So with regard to that, where am I going back without the budget? Obviously, as a vendor myself, I would say that, that gold mine should be spent in enhancing what happens in your CRM, but that's me selfishly speaking. But based on the last room I was just in where David Long was talking about it, and based on the numbers that he ran in 2020 around the vehicle acquisition network, I am going hardcore there. And I'm setting up everything in my organization around that. And it's around vehicle acquisition network and buying used cars and setting up the teams to do that. And what he was talking about was amazing. So definitely look into something along those lines. But it's great to be here, and I look forward to hearing everybody else.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. The next panelist we have on stage is the man, the myth, the legend, Ben Hadley. I met Ben at Digital Dealer a year and a half ago, and we've had great friendship ever since. Ben is the head of emerging product at Dealer Inspire and formerly has been at other automotive software companies, as well as been in the dealership side. So he knows both sides of it. And what I love about Ben is he's always willing to challenge me and push me to new limits. He challenged me to start the podcast. He was the first person that I texted and said I was thinking of doing this whole NADA thing, and he said, if you don't do it, I will. So I had to jump. I had to do it first. And Ben has been such an encouragement. And so yeah, Ben.
Paul Daly's not here, but I thought I'd give myself an intro track. Okay, so pad Thai, Indian food. I'm going to say the pad Thai question is really Thai food as a broad, right? It doesn't have to just be pad Thai. Is that cool?
It's fair. I'll give it.
Okay. All right. Then it is a hands down Krakow Gai Kai Dao. And it is from Tiny Thai in Winooski, Vermont. And if you ever find yourself in Winooski, Vermont, you are going to go to Tiny Thai right in the middle of the city. And you're going to ask for the menu, and you're going to go to the very last page, and you're going to turn to the backside where they have legitimate, like real Thai food. This family makes all of the chili peppers for all of the other Thai restaurants. They grow them. So you can like really, if you're a spice hound like I am, you can really go wild. But Krakow Gai Kai Dao is basically like a basil chicken-ish dish, and it's the best. Next is what would I do? Handcuffs are off, budgets got to be made. I think the first thing I would do after this NADA is learn ADCAR. It's like a change management framework. Basically, awareness of the need to change. So spreading awareness to the full company and not just a select few individuals. Gauging the desire to support that change. So, hey, a lot of the tools that you're going to be adopting in 2021 and on are going to be operational tools, not marketing tools, which means that, you're going to have process changes, and you have to understand whether or not the salespeople in this dealership are actually open and have a desire to support that change. What's their knowledge level? Like, we've all run into the older sales guy that's like, hey, can you show me how to use this iPhone? I haven't figured it out. And then the last is like its ability to demonstrate the skills needed in the change and reinforcement. So creating a reinforcement loop around that change. The second thing I would do is implement David Long's periods. So I thought this was one of the coolest things I heard in the clubhouse. David Long got up and talked about how he breaks his day up into thirds. And so if the team is lagging behind, right, first kind of define what is winning a period. So maybe that's certain call volume, maybe that's a certain amount of inbounds, whatever it is. And then breaking down the day into thirds so you can have a check-in point. And if you are veering off and not winning that period, that you can make corrections so you can win the next two periods. I just really want to implement that in my own world. And the last, and I think the most important thing I would do, and this is something I've encouraged dealers to do for years, is you've probably seen a bunch of really cool things by now, or you're curious about adopting a new product, and you're looking back at the budget that's already been eaten up. And the thing I would recommend is setting up a R&D budget. So we are entering a world where new technology is going to be coming up every couple of months, and all of it's going to seem shiny and brand new and awesome and revolutionary. And, if you've done the change management thing, you're going to build a process before you even adopt that technology. But the other piece is oftentimes I'm finding dealers are stuck in a world where they have to risk canceling a current technology that might be working pretty well in order to adopt a risky technology that they think could do better. But if you have an R&D fund set up, you never run into that situation. You always have a little bit of budget that is meant to be experimented with. So that's the next thing.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. And Liza, David, and Brian, I'll prep. I've got two questions, and then we'll open up the room and get going. And we're asking of each of the moderators before I introduce each of you in turn. But the first question is pad thai or you just left NADA, you heard a whole bunch of speakers, maybe you spoke yourself, you went to the vendor floor, you had all of these crazy things flying in your face, and now you got to go back to the store, to the group. The handcuffs are off, the budget's wide open. You come back from NADA, you've got all these ideas. What do you do first? What do you tackle first? What do you implement? Who do you talk to? What's the very first thing that you do besides answer 1,800 emails when you get back to the store? So I will introduce Liza Borches, and I am so excited to have you here because earlier in the week I had reached out and Liza said, I'm extremely busy. If I can find the time to get in, I'll be there. And I'm so excited that you've gotten to the last of these 6 incredible days that we've had. She is the CEO of Carter Myers Automotive and a passionate leader in our industry and one of the what I would call powerful people, and I would call her a powerful person because she has the power to empower others, and that is really attractive in my opinion. So Liza, thanks for being here. And
thanks so much, Kyle. I have about 8 minutes where I have to jump on another call, so I actually joined in here to just listen because, as I shared with you, my schedule the last couple of days did not allow me to participate virtually in NADA, where I would normally have blocked off those days to be there in person. It wasn't as simple when you're still back in the store. So I'm so glad to be able to jump in for a few minutes here. The first thing I'll say about the Thai food, pad Thai or Indian, I'll say Thai food, and I will share with you all that I am absolutely one of the worst cooks you'll ever meet. But if you come to Charlottesville, Virginia, one of the 2 dishes that I make is a red curry chicken or red curry shrimp, and my family loves it. So the best Thai food in town would be at my dinner table, and I would love to invite you all to come visit. And then to your second question, as I said, I've not been able to participate in much of the NATA the last couple of days, but thankfully, with the exception of the make meetings, everything seems to be recorded. So my plan is while I'm exercising this weekend, maybe some evenings, to go back and listen to as many of the different workshops and presentations that I can. But I will say that one of the topics that I probably 2 things that I know that we are tackling right now, and a lot of the pre-NADA discussions with our vendor partners that we would normally be meeting with during these 3 days. The first is simplifying our technology stack. Ben shared the idea that we need to be able to take risks. And last year was actually the first year. It's so interesting that he brought up the idea of having an R&D fund or R&D budget. It's not something that we have been willing to do or really been thoughtful of in the past. But after we read Simon Sinek's Infinite Game in 2019, in 2020, before COVID, I put aside a separate budget to help us be able to take risks and actually force us to take some risks and pilot things in a couple of stores where we weren't putting that against our normal budget. So Ben, you're spot on, and I absolutely continue to have that as part of our plan for 2021. And part of that is in simplifying our technology stack. I think we've gotten so many vendors, several of whom, even last year at NADA, that do bring value, but we've gotten to the point where I think we've overcomplicated our process by having too many different vendors and pieces of technology involved. So we're going to go back after this week and into this year and really figure out how do we simplify it and make the most, more usage of the tools that we do have to make the process as efficient as possible. The second thing that we're going to focus on is we've invested a lot of money already into our BDC departments. And as we're watching our BDCs take over more and more of the work, more and more of the conversation, the relationships with our customers, we really need to dig into how do we create value in the rest of the process. We've taken away a lot of duties off our sales managers' desks, phone calls, follow-ups, and the same with our sales associates. And everybody creates value, but I think we have to make sure that we've got the strengths with each person as a part of the sales process and that our pay plans are aligned correctly. So those are just 2 thoughts that I have that we are digging into.
That's excellent. I hope we get into the simplifying the tech stack. Another call. I hope we get into that simplifying the tech stack deal, because that's a big mission of mine this year, to find and encourage our vendors to get to that point. So I'm going to introduce David Spisak. David ran the #1 net profit auto dealership in the country, has sold those dealerships and is now on Clubhouse to encourage all of us, and has and sorry if I misspoke on the sold, and I'm not familiar with the whole transaction there, but I do know that he's added immense value and been so humble to be in so many of these rooms and encourage us and stay in the auto realm and be a part of what's going on. So I'm excited to hear from him and hear his encouragement today. And
well, nice to be with you, Kyle, and thank you for allowing me to jump on the stage here. It's great to be with all of you, and I have this streak is alive. My Clubhouse streak is alive. I've never been on here one time where I don't take notes, where I don't walk away with some real value, and for that I'm really appreciative. Man, that's a tough question between Thai, Pad Thai, and Indian. I probably would knock Pad Thai out right off the bat, and I think Indian food doesn't get typically as much play. It's sometimes underrated because it's oftentimes not thought of. But I would probably choose Indian food myself. And there's a place by the ballpark in San Francisco called Rue, which is pre-pandemic was absolutely epic. And so I would highly suggest people visit that place if you're over in San Francisco. And in terms of what I would do, I got to start here, guys. I've like probably many of you, I've spoken to a ton of dealers, during the course of this week, I asked a simple question. I'm just curious, did you participate in any way or get engaged with virtual NADA workshops, exhibit floor, anything? And the resounding answer was no. I think there was best intentions for a lot of people to get engaged. I think Liza hit it on the head. I mean, a lot of people had those intentions to do that, but one of the great things about going to NADA is we can eliminate, shut down those distractions and disruptions. Man, oh man, how do you do that when you're sitting in the dealership, in your office, and life is going on right before you every minute? You've got customers, salespeople, service, whatever else you might have popping up, heat cases, whatever it might be. So I think that despite best intentions, it just didn't happen for most folks. And as Liza said, hopefully some people will be able to take advantage of recordings and be able to focus on the learnings they really wanted to accomplish. In terms of what I would do, Ben, I think you're on the money, and Liza's on the money. Brian will tell you, he knows this. We speak about it all the time. Tech stack. You've got to simplify your tech stack, but I think the first thing you've got to do is to be able to really analyze it. You've got to look at your tech stack. You've got to look at every solution that you have in your store that is playing some role or is part of the process in your client experiences. And you've got to ask yourself, the question is, do you know how to measure value from them? Do you have some type of metric that is going to allow you to answer the question, hey, what's your ROI on that? I don't know. Are you people using it? I think so. Those are not answers that is going to, engender confidence from a dealer owner out there. So I would actually start one step before that. In order to effectively be able to analyze your tech stack, there's one position you have to have in your store. It's time we get serious. And it is a legitimate IT manager. I don't think that 25% of the stores in the country has a legitimate IT director, IT manager. And if you think about the proliferation of technology that has hit us in the last 10 or 15 years, but there's nobody there to manage that. There's nobody there to assist with integrations, implementation, security, or anything else. I'm telling you, we're getting to the point where that's just no longer optional. And if you had somebody that you could rely on as a trusted advisor, nobody would own a dealership without having a controller or CFO. Who is going to be your trusted advisor on the financial side of the business? You need to have that trusted advisor on the technology side of the business. It is becoming such a big part of the process, and you're not going to achieve the numbers, the results, the net profit, or the client retention you want without technology. So how do you do that if you don't have that legitimate partner out there? So once you have that, examine your tech stack. Is it making a contribution? Does it make the focus, as Brian says all the time, day in and day out, the goal is frictionless, but what's not optional is to not make it more frictionless every single year. And that's what I love about Brian and his team's relentless pursuit of that. So does it add to that? Does it make it harder? Does it make it simpler for your people to do their job? We spend a lot of time talking about the client experience and making it frictionless. How do you deliver a frictionless experience if you have a friction-filled process or friction-enabling technology in your business that makes it harder for your people to compete, harder for them to be as productive as you'd like them to be? So you've got to really pay attention to that. Do your solutions integrate with each other? If they do, it's a huge plus. If they don't, I'm not saying kick it out. But if they don't, they better be able to deliver on the ROI that you have. So I think that's a real must that people got to consider. But at the end of the day, it's all about tech stack. Here's the way I put it, people, for everybody on the call. I think it's analogous to prescriptions in your medicine cabinet. If you go to the doctor and you say to the doctor, I've got this issue, and your doctor says, hey, I'm going to write you a prescription. This should take care of it. Well, if it's the only prescription at home, chances are it'll probably take care of it. In worst case, I could go back to the doctor and they're going to give me something different. But if that doctor gives me a prescription and I have 14 other prescriptions at home, and one or more of those potentially doesn't play nice with each other, not only can that prescription that he or she gave me not work, it can actually exacerbate the situation. For God's sakes, it may kill me. So when you look at your tech stack, every time we're adding on to that tech stack, as Brian says, the pizza boxes, every single time, is that going to bring a cure? Is it going to exacerbate it, or is it going to take you further away from it? Next thing is that you've got to have buy-in. Don't ever, ever, ever again bring any solution into your store where you don't have absolute buy-in from your leadership team, because without it, you're going to end up absolutely generating pushback and maybe even saboteurs that are going to make sure. And I see that with BDCs. BDCs get sabotaged all the time by people on the desk, and solutions get sabotaged regardless of whether they're effective or not. And last but not least, focus. Put your focus on the end in mind. Where do you want to end up in terms of productivity, in terms of culture, in terms of client experience, and work your way backwards to figure out what do I need to have that solution be met or that goal be met. And if you're not there right now, that's okay. Just don't let anything else in that's going to make it worse. So please start with the end in mind, and I'll leave it there.
Thanks so much, David. This next speaker is Brian Benstock. And Brian, so thankful to have you here and excited to have you as part of this conversation. Brian is the VP and partner at Paragon Honda, Paragon Acura. And most recently, I've noticed, based on his Clubhouse profile, that he's a long-distance runner like myself. Looks like 23 marathons with a PR at 3 hours and 14 minutes at the age of 50. So my hope to have a running experience at the next event that we're at may come true, because I think it'd be cool to get a whole bunch of us doing a race for some sort of charity or something like that at our next personal event. Otherwise, Brian.
Hey, Kyle. Yeah, that would be great. You know, we have a Honda National meeting every.
I promise that wasn't me, y'all. All right.
Can you call him back up?
Yeah, I'm trying. That's the weirdest thing that I've ever seen happen. And there he is.
Okay.
That was the weirdest thing.
The plumber has the leaky pipes, right? I was saying I'd love to run with you. You guys get a couple of guys together. We got this little park called Central Park, and it's a hell of a great place to run. And Honda, we have a meeting every year. We get a bunch of good guys and gals together, and we go for a nice, easy couple of mile run. Nobody's showing off, just people having some fun, and those are the best kind of runs. Thai, pad Thai, or Indian? Answer: none of the above. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. I don't need to be cool, and have these fancy pants stuff. I will pass on all three. Restaurants in New York City, allow me to take you to Le Bouquet, a French restaurant on 60th Street between Park and.
I'm sorry, is that fancy?
No, I didn't say. Well, I'm not. It's not fancy. It's got a very fancy name. But the food is absolutely delicious. You'll have a Cajun chicken that melts in your mouth, and French fries that are the best on the planet. And I think that is a good place to go. Good music and good people. As far as NADA, I was wrong. I said that the attendance would be fantastic. I thought the attendance would be exceed what they had in place. And it just didn't pan out that way. It didn't pan out that way, I think, for the same reason I didn't attend a tremendous amount of the meetings, because I've got a full schedule like everybody else. And to take and tear open that schedule to make room for online meetings at NADA, as a practical matter, is not possible. That's why any of us who've done training or had trainers come in, we try and do them off-site of the dealership, because if we're at the dealership, people are going to interrupt. People are going to call us. People are going to say, I just need you for a second, and your day will get away from you. And I think that's what happened with me with NADA. I, like Liza and David, I hope to go through at my leisure files of the meetings, and if they've got them on video or audio where I can access them late, and I'm sure they will, we can pick and choose the ones that we want to access. What did I take away from NADA? I'm going to actually say I took it away from Clubhouse under the umbrella of NADA. Chip Perry and I got to reconnect on Clubhouse, and it was what a testimony. I was telling David, I believe this morning, David Spisak, that I caught him in a room full of entry-level salespeople, and he was in the bottom, not a moderator. And if I know Chip, he was listening and taking notes to hear what the frontline salespeople are saying. And when I jumped in, I got pulled up, and he then got pulled up, and we got into some very good conversation surrounding something that I had started a couple of years ago and really have not followed through with, which is one person taking a deal from cradle to grave. I think under the umbrella of simplification, which is what Paragon is looking to do, look to simplify everything we're doing, which is reduce, eliminate, or justify every expense. The mission for us is to take expense out of the cost of a sale. And we had salespeople in the service department that were taking deals cradle to grave. And I didn't do it in a structured way. We had some success with it, but I didn't do it in a structured way. And I'm going to go back to Chip and to a beta test that, because I do think that in all of the simplification talk that we're having and all of the eliminating disparate objectives, pizza boxes, tech stacks, we need to do the same thing for our transactions to take the cost out. And the best way to take the cost out is to give the people that sell the cars more money, but make them do more. I don't think people will hesitate to do that. Right now, you've got a BDC rep making an appointment. You've got a BDC manager. The appointment gets confirmed by a manager in the showroom. The manager turns it over to a salesperson. The salesperson sells the car, yay, turns it over to an F&I person. The F&I person turns it over to a delivery coordinator. So I've got 6 people right there as bare minimum that are getting paid on that transaction. I think we can, and let's just say on those 6 people that we're going to pay out a total commission of $600. Well, wouldn't it be better for us to pay one person $400? And wouldn't it be better for that one person? Because maybe that one person now is getting $250. And so that could be a good deal all around and help us eliminate some friction and potentially give us, instead of 12 F&I people, maybe it gives us 35 F&I people. And so it could potentially increase our capacity, make it better for the customer experience, reduce our expense, and have those people that sell a car earn more per transaction. I think if I put some effort behind that, that could be a very worthwhile outcome from this year's.
Yeah, that's the way you just said that. Having 35 as opposed to 12 is exactly what we experienced when we went single point of contact. Instead of having a bottleneck, and we're a smaller store, instead of having a bottleneck from 15 deals to 2 or 3 F&I managers, we have 15 deals going through 15 people all at the same time. So I think that that's a really good point there. I think that based on everything that the moderators have said so far, this idea of tech stack issues, simplifying that, and allowing our prescriptions to play nice with each other, if they are going to, is going to be a really big deal. And I think all of that centers around this idea that we need to have our research and development budget. And then we may be talking about researching and developing single point of contact sales, which I have a big passion for if you ever want to get in a phone conversation with me. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the raising hands and open it up to everyone. And I feel free to raise that hand, come on up, ask questions, add comments. Maybe you have a takeaway that's happened so far. But I want to ping back to either anyone in the moderators, and it looks like David is unmuted, but specifically around this tech stack which part of the tech stack would you attack first? Which would it be in how variable ops or fixed ops or accounting or would it be hard costs like operational stuff or marketing? What would you attack first? And maybe David or Ben or Brian, since you all kind of were headed along those lines, what would you attack?
Hey, Kyle. First thing I was just going to share with anybody who's on the call, I always try to provide as much value as I can. If anybody wants to DM me on LinkedIn or hit me up on IG and DM me, I will send you a video, 15-minute video on tech stack on this whole issue that will outline and overview all of it and put you on a good first step to go towards where I believe every dealer is trying to move towards. Next, in terms of, this is a very tough question, because really you've got to start at the epicenter. The epicenter in any dealership is the DMS, right? And the DMS oftentimes is going to dictate the level of integrations that you're going to have from the top to the bottom. So if you're working with a DMS, some dealers want to go out there and they want to save money and they're going to get one of the lower cost DMS systems, but they're going to sacrifice on the other side, and that they have to rely on significantly more third-party vendors and a lower degree of integration. I really think that we're not going to get to where any of us would like to see the industry go without starting to expect integration and intelligence embedded in every solution. So if I start with the DMS and I'm working with the DMS, that's going to allow me to be able to have the other pieces. And it's the reason why I said start with the end in mind. Start with the things you must have to deliver on that client experience and to deliver on your expectations for performance. Work your way backwards and say, okay, keep going backwards, work your way backwards from there until you get all the way back to the DMS, and make sure that you choose your DMS based on that, not based on who you like, who you don't like, or frankly, even, it's going to sound crazy, not who's the cheapest or anything else. This is not a situation where you're trying to save money. Listen, there's certain things in life that you don't want to go with the lowest price option all the time, right? Brain surgeon, I probably don't want to shop for the lowest price option on a brain surgeon. I probably don't want to put myself in the lowest price when it comes to a contractor necessarily, or anything that's going to have to do with safety. I'm going to spend more money. My daughter just asked, hey, Dad, I need to get my brakes done. Should I go back to the dealership, or should I didn't even let her finish the sentence, go back to the dealership. It's worth spending a little more money because you're going to get the warranty. You're going to get their backing. You're going to get OEM parts. Go spend the money. So I would start from start from where you want to end up, work your way backwards, and make sure your DMS is going to play nice with you.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty simple way to at least start looking at your tech stack. And the way I see it is very similar to probably how a stock trader would look at a portfolio. And so what you might find sometimes is that, two of your stocks are running in sync with each other, meaning that they're like trading in pairs. When one goes up, the other goes up. When one goes down, the other goes down. And that really means like you could have just doubled down on the other stock and had similar results. But if you looked at your tech investment as a portfolio, and then you said, well, I'm expecting a return on the investment on this tech stack to some degree. It doesn't mean monetary. It could mean time savings. It could mean a goal is accomplished, whatever it is. But if you look at that tech stack in that lens, then you'll see that it's necessary to have this R&D fund created, because just like a stock portfolio manager is going to tell you, is they don't want to have all of their money in the market at one time, because there's going to be opportunities that arise. There's going to be risks that seem very smart to take. There's going to be black swan events that you're like, ooh, if only I had had some money, I could have taken advantage of that 4th of July 10 event. I could have taken advantage of that marketing initiative. I could have taken advantage of that Vroom campaign, and I could have spent some ad dollars and captured and conquested. There's going to be all these events. So the unknown events are known to happen. We just don't know when. So you have to have this money locked around so that you can be agile enough to go and attack when necessary. And then it's a simple litmus test. If that experimental fund, the R&D fund, translates into accomplishing a goal better than something you currently have, well, now you can actually replace it with great data behind that replacement. But if you're just, I think I want to try digital retailing, so I'm going to cancel X, Y, and Z, you might be risking losing something that is actually performing really well and helping you your portfolio achieve goals, and replacing it with a risk that might not pan out. So I think that's really important. But before you do all of that, and I've said this like 1,000 times, but I'll say it again to make sure it's clear. And I said digital retail. The easiest thing for you to do tomorrow is, especially if you're thinking about digital retail as an example, is build a process around digital retail. Pretend like you already have digital retail, because you already have a trade-in app, you already have a finance app, you already have a lot of the components of digital retail. And once you have that process, your salespeople will go through some pain in implementing that process. This is prior to you buying the tool. But that pain is important because once you actually implement a tool, the litmus test now is, does my sales staff, do my customers now feel less pain? Do they feel relief? And I think we've done it wrong for so long, which is we go and we hear from a 20 group, from NADA, from wherever, hey, new shiny object, we go grab new shiny object, and then we build process. And that is painful the whole time, because you thrust this new tech onto people that weren't aware, didn't desire, weren't ready. And all they have is questions, all they have is pain. So there's never going to be real great opportunity for them to feel good.
I'd love to take kind of riff off of what you're saying there, Ben, because if you have that process in place prior to the product, another thing that was missing in that equation is standardization of KPIs to hold those new tech stacks all to the same level of standardization. And so if you add another product, and even if you have the processes down, but you have no standardization on how to hold all of those accountable with your own KPIs internally standardized to determine what those outcomes are and what you're fighting for, then it doesn't matter, because every single partner or vendor that you're working with will come out and say, hey, this is our report that says that you're doing X, and we think that X is so good you should invest more money. Instead of you being able to turn to them and saying, these are the standards we're going to hold you to. These are the processes we are going to make sure that we implement, and we're going to have you as a partner hold us all together, and we're going to hold each other accountable based upon this process, these KPIs, and these are the outcomes that we're looking for. So I think that Ben, I think what you've said about having the process in place before a product, I think that's a resounding yes from me as well.
Yeah, I love the idea of if you don't make the KPI, someone will, right? like that's just it. You don't make the judgment, someone else is going to make.
That's amazing. I know that Andrew and Jason and many of these others raise their hand. I'd love to get this conversation going. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows the room, the floor is open. Whatever you have to add or thoughts that you have on this idea of heading back to the dealership and changing things based on what you've heard either on Clubhouse or NADA, the practical steps to get there, or this tech stack revolution that we need as an industry. Feel free.
Yeah, Kyle, can you hear me okay? Wonderful. Thanks for letting me chat here. It's great to be on a panel with friends of mine like Brian Benstock and David Spisak, two people I respect immensely, and so many others on this forum here. So it's good to be a part. I want to comment on what David said earlier, because I think he's exactly right. It all starts with the DMS. And, frankly, I think that as an industry, an area of opportunity for both dealers and OEMs to collaborate would be with respect to the DMS companies. Because until we start to see movement on behalf of the big players in the DMS space when it comes to integration and more specifically on APIs. There was a famous white paper written a number of years ago by the folks at IBM, of all places, that talked about how the future economy is an API economy. And I think that no company embodies that more probably today in any other place than a company like Salesforce.com. I have a friend that has built quite a business developing custom applications for a myriad of different industries. And he does it all through the Salesforce API and helping companies integrate their various disparate systems, because it's an open source, open architecture, API driven industry and setup. And the automobile industry really is behind the times. And it's on the dealer facing side, on the retail facing side, it starts with the DMS company. So I just fear that until we get movement from them, I don't see how we're ever going to be able to reduce that tech stack, because we're left to our own devices to go elsewhere to find solutions to address certain problems throughout various parts of the retail sales and service process. So that was all I wanted to say.
Oh, no, I completely agree with you there. Obviously, API is the future, real-time data acquisition, data sharing. We had a room about that the other day. Andrew, I have a question for you on that. Do you see a play for Salesforce to get? I've heard rumors, and I've seen a couple of a couple years ago, I think they came out with there's an article that someone thought that Salesforce was getting in. Is there a play for that, for them to disrupt?
I mean, I guess anything's possible. I mean, I think that the better play, the more expeditious play, would be for the big DMS companies, or maybe even some of these up and coming companies, to maybe modify their approach to be more akin to what Salesforce.com does. And I think, there are some players out there that are starting to dabble in that. And I think
Techion.
Yeah, that's the one. I didn't know if we were allowed to drop names in here or not. But
sure, we're not selling it. Hey, Andrew, I think Salesforce could be a real bridge between the OEs and the dealers, right? And what if we shared a common CRM? Could you imagine? Imagine that if we would have the ability to have lookalike audiences and to know with good probability when customers in our database were likely to want or need something based on artificial intelligence and Honda's vast knowledge based on them having 71 million clients in their database. And so without interfering with customers' private information, they could say, hey, Benstock, this guy had his front brakes changed on his 2018 Accord with 17,000 miles. We know with a certainty he's going to or she's going to need rear brakes at this interval. And we need you to reach out to them, or the system itself reaches out to them and tells them that you're going to need this, and why don't we do this back at Paragon, and Paragon will pick up the car. And just think of the millions of data points that we could work together with the OEM to say, hey, when this happens, I want to know about it so we can do this or that.
Hey, Brian, on that point, if the underlying data were there and the underlying architecture was powered by Salesforce, if you had something innovative that you wanted to pursue because of your entrepreneurial spirit, you could go out and hire a company that does these custom Salesforce application developments, and you could hire them to write the software to try to accomplish what you want to accomplish without upsetting the whole apple cart. I mean, how great would that be?
You're talking open source platform improvement of the CRM.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
That exists today. It exists today.
That's what we need.
Well, there are dealers leveraging Salesforce today, guys.
Yep. I was just going to say, I know a progressive group in California.
I think that could be huge. And, I know that CDK is trying it with Fortillis, but, they've not had lift with it yet. But
the problem is, guys, that everything that ultimately the transaction is processed in the DMS. That's the way the system is currently set up. So all the things that we want to do that ultimately lead to the transaction happening, it has to end and be processed in our DMSs, whether that's the repair order, the car deal, whatever it is. So until the DMS companies, are more nimble, we're going to have a hard time. Go ahead.
And Andy, there is no, please. I just want to dovetail on that. I mean, first of all, there are some very progressive, aggressive dealers out there that have taken on Salesforce. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. When you bring Salesforce into the equation, this is not a small project. If you think switching a CRM, from eLeads to Vin Solutions or Vin Solutions to DealerSocket, if you think that's an undertaking of brain damage, you ain't seen nothing yet. Salesforce
David, did you know we had Salesforce come in, and we had
the first person I thought of.
Oh yeah, okay.
I've talked to him too, guys.
But Andy, building a CRM from scratch with these guys, the bill was going to be nearly $1 million because they made the mistake of saying, "What do you want?" And so I went, "Whoa!" I'll tell you. Well, when
this is a challenge.
Mr. So-and-so's registration does this, I want that to happen. When that happens, I want this to happen. And, they were checking off boxes, and we had multiple roundtable meetings. The CRMs that are available to dealers now are 1/10 the power of what we could get from a Salesforce.
They're even worse than that. I'll go beyond that. They're worse than that. Check this, guys. Tell me if I'm wrong. They're worse than that because they're not only 1/10 of the power to Brian's statement is completely correct, but they also add 500 things that don't add value, that just create a convoluted system that make it much more onerous as a task for people to be able to interact with that thing every single day without actually delivering value. Here's the thing, the Salesforce situation, Brian, you're 100% right. This is like the difference between buying a house, shopping for a house. We found a great house. You bought that. It's great. Okay. Versus you're building a house from scratch, and the person is asking you what type of concrete do you want to use in the foundation? What gauge of wires? Do you care what the casing looks like? It is mind numbing. But I just want to throw something else out there to Andy's point. In terms of until the DMSs do X. Okay, we are starting to see more dealerships become more aggressive, more demanding with their DMS systems, saying, listen, you've been abusing me on my data for years. You've been charging me to access my own data for years. Guess what? As a user, if I am the user and I'm using it only for my dealership, I have the rights to access my data just like a vendor does, but without a charge. So what they're doing is they're investing in data warehouses, very sophisticated data warehouses. And when you build tech solutions, as I have, you have two options. You can build out an API and try to integrate with a hostile integration, out there. You can go out and get data hostilely. That's not optimum. You could use an API like RCI with Reynolds or 3PA, Fortellis with CDK, OpenTrack with DealerTrack. But then you're forced to use that integration with your integration. And then every time you add another solution, you got to build another integration. Or you could build what's called middleware. And middleware essentially is saying, listen, I don't care where the origin of the data is. I'm putting all of this data into my middleware, and then I can do and leverage that data any way I wish. So I'm looking forward to the time where we're starting to see the ability for dealers, like Andy, like Brian and others, to be able to say, okay, I'm going to shop for a middleware, I'm sorry, not a middleware system, but a data warehousing platform that then allows me to do you get it? Now you could take data from Xtime, data from Viato, data from Vin Solutions, data from whoever, your DMS, and you could put it all together and you could leverage that data any way you wish. That's kind of cool.
Guys, it's a problem. Now that we've kind of are migrating to talking about data, it's a problem when we are pressured by an OEM to go out and execute a recall campaign, and we're issued a report that I validate through a third-party vendor to find out that 60% of the data provided to me by the OEM is not accurate. Either they
also provided it to you a month late because they're
So there's systematic issues, there's data issues, And I just, this is such a huge issue.
So
hold on.
It's great. I thought I missed the dealer make meeting. I'm glad.
I just want to, as a person that's used Salesforce every day of his life for the last 10 years, do want to point out, on its own, it's not that great. In fact, chances are probably the OEMs that are sending you that data are using Salesforce. And so it's very slippery slope to use Salesforce and then use it wrong. It's also very slippery slope to even get people to use it in the first place because the software itself is pretty crappy. But what I will say is that the dealers I know that are implementing Salesforce are using it more as a data lake, is what kind of David was leaning towards, because the marketplace that it's attached to Salesforce is kind of like cheating. It's kind of like cheating the tech stack game. I'm glad Todd Smith just joined because he'll talk about data lakes better than anybody I know. But what I mean is, if you look at the trajectory of technology within the automotive space, most of what's been developed has been stuff that is copying things that already exist and integrate with Salesforce. So oftentimes we're looking to verticals left and right of us and saying, that's a really interesting idea. I wonder if we could build it so it's compatible with, ADF XML, this 1995 computer language. So I think that's where Salesforce does start making sense as an implementation. But I also just want to caution, because we have a lot of people on here, that your average dealer, I don't think, should actually consider Salesforce yet. The ones I know actually have full development teams in-house and develop their own applications themselves. And I think there's more of a one-off case for that than there is for making broad.
Hey, I'm going to just real quick, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to keep this room going. This is, man, I'm loving this conversation, and I'm super big and encouraged on tech stack and trying to figure out where that tech stack, whether it be variable or operational, is a really big deal for me. I'm glad Todd just joined because I've had some great conversations on tech with him, and we actually got in a clubhouse room the other day. We have recorded it to this point. We're going to go ahead and shut down the recording. So this is just a wide open room. We're taking away things from NADA. And I just want to share, this is the last of 6 sessions that we've had bouncing off NADA. We've had some incredible panelists and speakers this week come in and encourage me, give us a bunch of takeaways. I've taken more notes than I can see straight with, and I can't wait to go back through them all this week. If you missed any, you can check out all of them on Contagious Podcast, which is the podcast that I've launched just recently, or at nada2021.club. There's a page there where you can find the daily recaps and those all of those recordings. Again, we'll keep this room going. I think that there's a lot of insightful stuff on trying to figure out how we manage our tech stack, how we manage our data, and how we utilize that to actually make it better for the customer. My last encouragement before we stop recording is that if you've gotten anything from today, remember that you are your own leader. You are the leader to the people, to those around you. If you have those people of influence in your life, please share those things, the things that you've learned here, the encouragement and the innovation that you'd like to see in our industry, and push our industry forward together. And I believe that it'll grow at a contagious rate in our industry.
Thank you so much for listening today. We hope you enjoyed that. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and the innovation and the insights that happened on Clubhouse. As always, please like, share, comment, give this to those in your workplaces or friends or family that may be encouraged by it. And what we need from you is for you to be a part of this conversation, to have this conversation with more people and not less. We need more voices and not less in our industry pushing forward toward innovation, and that includes you. So as you go forward, as you listen to this, as you think about this, make sure you don't have just internal dialogue, have conversations with more people so that we can provide an innovative atmosphere where more people want to become a part of it and work in the industry as well as do business with us. Thanks for listening to Contagious Podcast.